So welcome. We're going to be doing some standing poses today. A few of the key ones, Trikonasana and the balancing pose, Ardha Chandrasana, tree pose, Vrishkasana, and Prasarita Padottanasana, the wide leg forward bend. So we don't need a lot of props today, but 2 foam blocks would be helpful. And also wall space. So if you need to clear a space to be able to use the wall, this is a good time to do that. And then let's take a lying down position onto your mat as you're ready to. Lying down on your back with your legs bent and your feet close to your buttocks. And I'll take that position too. And once you're comfortable lying on your back, let's pause and rest the hands over the navel center and take time to connect with the breath. Take this early part of the session just to connect with your breath in the abdominal area as you breathe in and breathe out. Without adding anything special, just your natural rhythm of breathing. But the important part is being present to it and feeling the sensations there. So welcoming yourself into your body and into your current breathing pattern. Let's begin with apanasana. So bend your knees into your chest and hold at the front of each knee. Allow your arms to be straight and your legs are just relaxed, heels towards the buttocks. Exhale, bring your thighs towards your ribs. Inhale, draw the knees away as you straighten your arms. Exhaling to inhaling. With a particular connection to the abdominal area. This is where our organs of digestion, of elimination are. And just this simple rocking movement brings more energy into those organs. Shoulders are relaxed, face is relaxed. And maybe the breath is deepening as you continue here. Good. One more squeezing movement, thighs towards your ribs, and then release and have you both feet back on the floor, arms just by your side. Actually move your arms out a little bit away from the sides of your body. Bring your knees back up towards your chest, and then let's go rotation to the right, knees to the right, look to the left. Bring yourself back into center, and in reverse, over to the left side, looking to the right. Just start slowly, and we'll do a few rounds of this, and you might be able to deepen the movement as you go along. But as you take the legs and the hips to one side, keep the opposite side stable by pressing the shoulder and the shoulder blade. So I'm not going quite to the floor because that would pull me off balance and tip me to that side. I'm just trying to use my core muscles to keep the pose stable. And then when you finish, you're back in the center and feet back on the floor. And then let's take one of the foam blocks for bridge pose. So we're doing this series of 3 warm-up exercises. And for bridge pose, keep your block mid-range and just above your knees between your thighs. Then plant your feet down and squeeze lightly against the block. And feel as you're still resting onto the floor, the arms relaxed out to the side. We're going to do just a tiny pelvic lift. As you lift up, the buttocks tuck under. As you lift up a little bit higher, see if you can start to move the tailbone away from you. Just want to bring the curve into the lumbar area, the lower back, and then lower to the floor and articulate the spine coming down slowly. Slow lift on an inhalation. One phase of the breath, and slow release to the floor on the exhalation. Keep your feet pressing down so you feel quite grounded through your feet, through your lower legs. And the next time that you return to rest for the time being, little plan ahead. We're going to extend the arms overhead as you lift your hips off the floor. On an inhalation, begin to lift up, and arms come overhead, and your hips are moving towards your legs. Exhale, lower arms down, lower spine down, all the way down to the base of your spine, and resting. And let's do that all over again. Inhaling, the pelvis moving towards the legs. Exhaling, articulating from top spine all the way to the base of your spine. And let's do just one more. And then releasing all the way down, and arms down. And let's take the block out. Roll to one side and come all the way up to standing. And I thought for today's practice we'd do some standing warm-ups for the upper part of our back, for the dorsal thoracic. So let's take Tadasana first, the very basic pose. And find a stance where your feet are comfortably apart. And find that optimum distance for yourself. So standing comfortably in your own 2 feet, your arms relaxed by your side. Good. And then bring your arms up in front of you and take the arms into kind of a circular shape as though you're holding a great big, one of those fit balls or beach balls. And let's do a little rotation one side, looking around to that side, and then coming back to center and opposite side. So feel this sensation in your upper part of your back, your upper spine, your shoulder blades, as you rotate right and left. Find a nice breath rhythm that works for you here. And what you might try as you do this for the next times is just looking towards your camera or your screen so your head is rotated in the opposite direction than when you started. Lovely. Can you keep your elbows up a little bit higher? Good. And let's finish in the center and drop the arms and release and relax the elbows. And bringing the arms up overhead this time, straight forward and reaching up. And exhale, bringing the arms back down. Go all the way through so your arms are back behind the line of the body, and then turn the palms forward and bring the arms straight up. So elevating the arms but the shoulders too, and exhaling and lowering the shoulders and rotating the arms. Bring the arms back behind the line of your hips, turn your palms forward. Imagine that you're moving through very heavy air, and the arms lift up against that little bit of resistance, and then down through that heavy air, back behind you, rotating and bringing the arms up. Keep the knees relaxed, so soft behind the knees. And one more time, and all the way up. And exhale, completing those movements. We'll work with them a little bit more in a moment, but before we do, let's do a contralateral movement. So something that makes you think a little bit and adapt your body to a little planning here. So step right foot forward and left foot is back behind you. Pause and get your balance in that position. You're asymmetrical now, so pause to get your balance. And then bring your arms up again in that circular shape, that round shape. And then so I've got my right foot forward, my left foot back. I'm going to bring my opposite arm from the leg that's forward in front of the line of the body and the other arm back behind me. Good. And then fold your arms back in that circular shape. Step left foot to right and right foot back. Good. And then take the arms in opposite directions. Big circular shape there. I'm looking forward, not backwards, and then stepping forward again. And let's see if we can do that one more time each side. And right foot's forward, I believe. And then we want opposite arm from the front leg forward and opposite arm back. And then step forward. Not so easy doing this and talking at the same time. And one more time, opposite leg forward from the arm that's forward. And step forward. Got your arms in that big circular shape and then release them by your side. Find your yoga block. And let's work a little bit with the movement that you just warmed up for. So take up your block onto your right hand. Sometimes this is nicknamed waiter arms. So as though a waiter was putting his arm out for a tip with your block resting on the palm of your hand. And then with a little forward bend, let's see if we can bring that arm back behind the line of the body. If there was a tip that was given, it's being pocketed now, back behind the line of the body, and then bringing it forward. And let's see if that works on repetition. And forward. Without catching it on your clothing. And third time maybe. Here we go. The nice thing about these blocks is that if you drop them, it's not a big deal. And other hand. Left hand in front of you. Let's bring that tip back and pocket it. And forward. And as much as you can, keep upright. That might be a little bit more challenging. But this is for the rotation through your shoulder and creating a little bit more suppleness in that part of our back that can get stiff. All right, well done. And then let's leave that block to the side and take a balancing pose. We'll adapt it to chair pose. So let's start with just simple chair pose. From Tadasana, find your optimum distance in the width of your feet. Take a moment and steady standing in your feet. Tadasana, mountain pose, is sometimes in other systems called samastiti, which means steady standing, I think. So feel that you're steadily standing on your feet. And then flex your knees. At the same time as you bend your knees, bring your arms up just alongside your ears into chair pose, into Utkatasana. Lift your tailbone a little bit. Want to keep the natural curve of your lumbar spine. And then inhale and come up and lower your arms. Bending your knees again and swing the arms forward and up. And see if you can adapt the pose so you truly feel like you're sitting back into your chair, your imaginary chair. And the knees come back a little bit too. And then coming all the way up. All right, and then let's turn it into a balancing pose. The next time that you take chair pose, bending your knees and arms come up, then come up onto the ball of your feet. Find your balance there with your heels raised. And can you keep the heels up as we come all the way up to standing? And exhale down. Take pause and notice what happened with your breathing. For sure, what I noticed was my breathing was very shaky there. So avoid holding your breath, and then let's have another go. And arms come up into your knee bend, and heels come up. Stay towards the inside of your foot, your big toe base, if you can, and keep the heels up as you straighten your legs and reach up and exhale down. Try 2 more at your own pace. Maybe I can do this a little more successfully while I'm not talking. Last one. And when the heels are down, the arms are down by your side, and back to Tadasana and steady standing, grounded through your feet. Let's take another standing pose that is Vrishkasana, and I'm going to use my wall space here for emphasizing the strengthening part of tree pose. So next to the wall, inside leg is going to be the raised leg. So I'm standing on my left side facing the wall, on my right leg. When you lift your left leg into tree pose and place your foot along your leg, it can go anywhere. You can still have your toes on the floor, on the calf muscle. I'm going to bring it all the way up and use the wall to rest my knee on. So here in this version of tree pose, I've got all the support that I need from the wall. I can have my hand on the wall or my knee on the wall. Then once you've got your favored position, bring your hands onto the outside of your hips, and with the flat of your hands, your palms against your hips, press in a little bit. And as you compact the hips to the center line of your body, feel that you might even grow taller in that position. And then as the balance, the shakiness of the balance is pretty much out of the question, out of the equation here, then you might just keep working on that hip movement. So the outer hips pressing into midline. And then if you like, join your hands in front of your chest. If your balance is shaky, you might even be holding your leg, and that's just a fine way to go, working on the muscles on the outer hips. And then let's switch. And now you're going to have, I'll have my back to you, but same position, and opposite leg, opposite knee onto the wall. So you might try that for yourself on this side too, just palpating on the outer hips and pressing those muscles in towards the center of your body. And the core muscles get engaged in this way. Once you're able to maintain your balance, if you're shaky in your balance, then just keep working with your hands onto the outer hips or onto your hips. Otherwise, you might take your arms overhead this time. And releasing for another round. So let's go one more time. And as we're still using the wall, you might decide to wean yourself off of it a little bit. So moving the knee away from the wall, it's still available there for balance, working on the strengthening through the outer hips. And then releasing, and last side. So especially be observant, as I'm trying to do and talk at the same time, that you might be holding the pose, but holding your breath at the same time. So that's not a good sacrifice. So if possible, keep the breath as your first emphasis, breathing, and then work towards your balance, and maybe moving the knee away from the wall a little bit this time. And finally releasing, and we can move away from the wall and take up a spot on your mat. We'll do Trikonasana, triangle pose, facing the long end of the mat, step out. And we're not rushing here, we're being very conscientious and moving through these movements slowly. So find initially your favored distance of your feet. If you're too far apart, you could test that. You might feel destabilized in your pose. If you're too close together, you might have lost the challenge of the pose too. So find the place where you're grounded and equal pressure initially in this facing straight forward position on both feet. Bring your hands onto your hips, relax your shoulders. Turn on your heels and turn your feet to the right side. And check a few details, important details. Have the heels in line and feel whether that position is stable for you. And you might make some small adjustments as you need to in that initial stance. And then the weight back to even on both feet. Extend the arms out sideways from your shoulders and feel the work that we did early on in opening up the dorsal thoracic and flexibility there. And draw the arms out long from the head of the shoulders, but feel like the top of the arm is sit back into the shoulder joint. Let's go right and extend laterally over the right leg and right hand down and left arm up. From here, lift the tailbone a little bit. And then so your neck feels the most comfortable here. Instead of trying to look up towards the ceiling, you're just looking straight forward, but lift the crown of your head a little bit more. And then from your back leg and from your top arm, inhale and come up. Beautiful. Turn your feet straight forward and then feet to the left. Good. Pause there. Check your, what we call your alignment, your heels in a line. And then pause. And without anticipating what's next, just land in your 2 feet. Feel grounded there. And then ready to move and extending out over the left leg and releasing left hand down just beneath your shoulder and right arm above your left arm. Good. And then pause there and feel into the back leg. Allow the top of the right hip to come a little forward and then lift the tailbone again. Good. Lift the crown of your head a little bit. Release your shoulders back towards your hips. Good. And steady, relaxed breathing. Inhale and come up. Good. Arms out wide. Turn your feet to center. And step all the way back in. And back to Tadasana. Let's repeat that pose. Triangle, Trikonasana, and stepping out. And feet turn to the right. Re-extend your arms. And let's reach and create that lateral opening through the right ribs, the right hip, and right hand down, left arm up. Good. Allow the top of the left hip to roll forward slightly. The left leg is turning in, but the right leg is turning out. Lift your tailbone. Widen the arms away from each other in that spread of the dorsal thoracic. Take a few quiet breaths there. And when you're ready to move on an inhalation, draw up and turn your feet to the left. Good. As we're moving slowly and conscientiously, check your alignment again. And then reach out, open up the left ribs, and be in the pose. And on this side, the right thigh is turning in, tailbone lifts, left thigh turns out right at the top of it, the left knee turns out the same, and lift the crown of the head a little bit. Beautiful. Inhale, come all the way up. Feet front and center, and one big step in. Good. Take pause in Tadasana. It's a most beautiful pose. Reminds you to be grounded and easy in your body. So do check that your shoulders are relaxed. And you've done some good preparation for Ardha Chandrasana, that one-legged balancing pose. So let's take up a block again. And I have my wall space behind me for this version that we're going to do. And we'll start in something like Trikonasana. So the feet turn to the right. And how far am I from the wall? We'll work it out when you get into your balancing, one-legged balancing. But just enough space so that your buttocks clear the wall. What is that? My heel's just about a couple of inches away from the wall. All right, and then let's place the block, bend your right knee, and place the block out in front of your right foot, preferably little toe side of your foot at the reach of your arm, and then coming back up. And let's do this in the steps for Trikonasana to Ardha Chandrasana. Inhale, bring your arms out to the side. I've got the wall there for security and for balance. And then bend your right leg, slide your left foot in towards your right, and then reach down onto the block at the same time as you bring your left leg up behind you. And then, if you wish, your top arm extended, or you can leave your hand onto your hip. At this point, I'm resting my right shoulder blade onto the wall, and if I want to test my balance, I might move a little bit away from the wall, or right buttock and right shoulder might stay onto the wall. And then finally, if that's a simple movement for you, extend your left arm up towards the ceiling. And we're going to move out of this pose. I think we sort of skipped over Trikonasana coming in. Let's come to Trikonasana coming out of the pose. And that's left hand, left hip. Flex your right knee. Lower your left leg to the floor. Keep the leg straight. Right hand, right leg. Left arm up towards the ceiling. Inhale, come all the way up. And let's shift to the second side. And turn both feet to the left. Got your block placed, bending your left leg. Place your block in front of your left foot, in front of the little toe side of your foot. And let's work through Trikonasana on this side. So, first, reaching out, left hand down. I'm going to keep my right hand onto my right hip. Just makes me feel a little bit more secure. And then looking in the direction that you're going, flex your left knee, slide your right foot in a little bit, and then reach down to the block, take it out at a little distance from your left foot, and finally raise your right leg level with a little bit lower probably than your right hip. Then at this point, I was saying on the first side, my shoulder blade resting onto the wall or my buttock. I might play with moving slightly away from the wall and also raising up my arm. That idea of playing with the pose rather than the pose having to be perfectly polished and finished. And then bring your hand back onto your hip. Find your way back to the floor and see if you can, with composure, find Trikonasana again. Left hand, left leg, right arm up. Good. Inhale and come up. Turn your feet front and center. And take a break, step into center. Not really a complete break, into Tadasana. And your arms loose by your side. So we've just done Ardha Chandrasana, half moon pose, in a kind of paint by numbers fashion. So let's see if we can do it with a little more, ease and grace. So let's have another go. Back to the original side. It's handy to have the two blocks because you can keep just one on each side. You don't have to move them around. And then starting from the wide leg position and moving into Trikonasana first, feet turned to the right. Left hand, left hip. Reach out to the right side, right hand down. Take pause. So you had all the time in the world. And then slide that back foot in. It's really nice here to still have 2 feet on the ground and your right hand onto the block. And then raise that left leg behind you. Good. And then once more, that playful idea of seeing if you can release from the wall a little bit. Use the wall for balance as much as you need to. And then see if we can open up the pose just a little bit more. If you look down at where your hand is on the block, move it out at a little further distance away from you. For some reason for me, when I do that, then that makes me feel I can lift out of the pose a little bit more. And rather than looking up at my raised hand, looking straight forward and lifting the crown of the head. And then let's find our way to ground again. And Trikonasana. And up we come. And the other side. All right, and we know the pathway now pretty well, so let's just be in the poses. Trikonasana. Ardha Chandrasana. With that little adjustment of moving the block out slightly further away from you, and then lifting up through the lower arm to the armpit. And finding our way back. Trikonasana. And releasing. Tadasana. I thought in this sequence that we might do something that's not really a classic textbook yoga pose, but it's something that we could play with a little bit. And it's the weeping willow version of Ardha Chandrasana. So you're still going to use your blocks, and we'll go step by step through this similar pose, but with a difference. So step out onto your mat, that optimum distance for your feet. And then, without taking Trikonasana this time, left hand, left hip, slide your left foot in and reach for your block. Right hand onto the block, right leg is your balancing leg. And instead of reaching your top arm, your left arm up towards the ceiling, bring it over to the right side, just above your right ear. Kind of flex your elbow and allow that arm to drop down until you feel a stretch through your shoulder blade. on on the upper side, the left side, and then let your left leg drop down a little bit. I'm supported by the wall. I've got my heel on the wall, and now I've got this tremendous stretch and opening through my lateral body, my whole left side. You can see why it's called weeping willow. And then raising that arm back up, raising the leg a little bit, and finding the pathway out of the pose, lowering your leg for the second side. Oop. And feet to the left, and arms outstretched. Right hand, right hip. Let's move out and take up our position onto the block. And then instead of the right arm raised overhead, take it over to the left side. Soften the elbow. It's kind of a ballet movement. And you're dropping the arm, not completely, but stretching the top shoulder blade. And then release your heel down, right heel down. So not collapsing, the lower arm is still straight onto the block. And then we're going to find our way out of the pose. And right hand, right hip. And look for the floor with the right foot all the way back. And inhale and come up. And feet to center. And stepping back in. So a version of Ardha Chandrasana with a difference. Very good. Well, let's take Prasarita Padottanasana, the wide-legged forward stretch. Step out on your mat, facing the long end of the mat again. And I've taken up my block. I'm going to have it in front of me on the high end. So let's create a little hip movement, a little shoulder movement, relaxed in your upper body. And then your feet facing directly forward, all 5 toes, both feet facing directly forward. Bring your hands onto your hips. We haven't done very much in the way of forward bending so far. So feel where the crease of the top of your thighs is, and then take a bow and a third of the way down or a half of the way down. Look for the block and rest the heels of your hands onto the top of the block. I'm going to lift each heel separately and widen my position slightly. And from there, not going down so much as straight arms, lift up your chest, bring the corners of your top chest forward. And if you like, lean out a little bit for the hamstring stretch. Lift your tailbone and feel into the base of your spine. You can't see it, but feel the lumbar area in its natural curve, and the chest nice and open. We're going to take a lateral movement again. So just your left arm onto the block, right hand, right hip. Turn your chest to the right side, look to the right side. And as you do that, then keep the left arm nice and long. So you're drawing up from the wrist to the armpit. Good. And then release your right arm, if you like here, and that feels like a nice movement for your shoulder blade. Extend that arm up towards the ceiling. If that's too strong initially, keep your hand onto your hip, and it's really good work to lift your shoulder, your elbow, up and back. And then looking down and in reverse and replacing right hand for the left hand onto your left hip, turning to look to the left side. And with the warm-ups and so forth that I've done, I'm happy to extend up my left arm, but keep your hand onto your hip if that doesn't work for you. All right, and then looking down and both hands supporting onto the block again. Let's say concave through the top chest. Move the shoulder blades forward towards the front of your lungs. Look out. And then let's work to the original side again. Left hand supporting you, right hand, right hip. And instead of looking to the right side, look down at where your hand is and keep your head in that position looking down, but turn your torso to the right side. And then from there, and if it's a simple movement for you, extend up your right arm. You're still looking down. You haven't turned your head. You've just turned your upper body and your chest. All right, and then release. And let's go one more round to the left side. Right hand supporting you and the right elbow stays straight. You're looking at your hand, and then happy to take your arm up, do that version. Otherwise, keep your hand onto your hip. Good. And then all the way down. We've done some strong stretching through the leg work. So heel and toe, bringing your feet back in and all the way back to Tadasana. Bend your knees over your ankles. Release the block to the side and inhale and come all the way up. Very good. I want to do we did the bridge pose in the very beginning warm-up section of this session. I'd like to follow it with some back bends, but do a lunge or two to warm up for some lying face down back bends. So I've got 2 blocks for this, and I'm going to have my hands onto the blocks. I'm going to take up a kneeling position onto your mat. So kneeling up, and straight away you'll know whether it's comfortable where you are to be kneeling, or do you need some more protection underneath your knees. That could be a folded blanket. I have doubled up mats, and they're placed onto a carpet, so I'm quite comfortable on my knees. So just make those adjustments as you need to. We're going to take the right foot forward between the blocks, which I've placed on the high end. So the blocks on the outside of the front foot, the right foot. When I'm in this position, I've got right ankle behind my knee. I'm going to step it forward a little bit. The back leg is the knee is on the floor. So I'm not trying to raise that knee. I'm going to keep an obtuse angle behind my right knee. And that leaves me room to bend my knee and to stretch the front of the left thigh. So the back leg quadricep gets a good stretch here, and that's a good warm-up for any back bends. And here, the chest is open, and I'm just looking out towards the horizon. The back leg, press a little bit more on the little toe side of the foot. And then I feel like you can widen that left hip a little bit more to the left. And then we're going to come out of this stepping back and kneeling on both knees until you're ready to step the left foot forward. Left foot forward. Take a moment and look at your own pose and give a wide angle behind the knee, that obtuse angle. I'm propped up on my high blocks, and that lets me lift and open my chest forward at the same time as I bend my front knee and get that quadricep stretch. Let's go one more round. Sometimes the back leg thigh muscle is a little bit unyielding to stretching, so we're not in a hurry. We've got time here, and it's right foot forward and coming into your lunge. Press the top of the left foot, the foot behind you. Press the little toe side of the foot a little bit more. Turn that thigh in, and then bend the front knee. Good. We've got one more side to go. And coming out of the pose with as much dignity as you can, stepping back and left foot forward. The transitions of the poses are important. If you're wobbly in the transitions, then you may have not supported yourself as you move out of the pose or into the pose. And then keeping the bend at the front of the knee and pressing the top of the back foot, little toe side, and then stepping back. And from here, we can move these props out of the way and take up a belly down position onto your mat. It's a lovely thing to start with your arms folded and your head resting onto your folded hands. And give yourself time, even when you're prone like this, you've put yourself into a back bend already. So you can feel or palpate and feel the lumbar curve, possibly a little more pronounced when you're lying prone. Then find a distance to separate your feet and your legs. And maybe give a little shake out to your hips and your buttock muscles. And when I say find a distance that's suitable for you, if you bring your legs all the way together and squeeze them together, then you've actually probably given very little space to the lower part of your back, to your sacrum. So if you step your feet out a little bit, find that optimum distance where it feels like you've given comfort to the pelvis and to the sacrum. And then come onto your elbows, I should say onto your forearms. So your hands like dog pose, your fingers spread, and then press your palms down, press your wrists down, and lift your chest a little bit off the floor. And we call this Sphinx pose. Feel like you're pulling your elbows back towards your hips and pressing your chest forward. Then anchor your legs by pressing on the tops of your feet and your breastplate pressing forward, shoulders down. And then as you lower yourself down, you've done a little warm-up for Cobra pose. Slide your hands back so that your fingers are underneath the tips of your shoulders. But then take it a little time to stretch your triceps back, your upper arm muscles, from your armpits to your elbows to your waist, and lowering your elbows down. So lift your head, lift your chest. Feel that distance of your legs apart is still optimum, and come up as much as your back will allow you at this time, but keep the arms working, just squeezing lightly against your upper ribs, and that will keep your shoulders down. And then unfold back to the floor, or fold back to the floor, and pausing. And let's go up for one more time. Inhaling up. So the tailbone's not moving towards the floor, it's moving away from you, it's lengthening. And the top of the sacrum is moving forward. And exhale down. And coming back to that very relaxed position with your head resting onto your hands either to the side or resting your forehead down. We've done lots of warm-up, so let's see how we progress with bow pose. Bend your legs and bring your heels closer to your buttocks. And then with your head still down, reach back one hand and then the other for the tops of your feet or the front of your ankles. And then consider the stretching that you were doing in the lunges, and stretch as much as you can from the tops of your thighs towards your knees. And then flex your feet and draw your feet down, your toes down towards your knees. And we're going to come up whatever distance your body feels prepared to come up into your little back bend. And then as you lift your thighs, lift your head and your chest, think about just going up and lifting up. And then exhale, come down. Keep your legs bent. Fold your arms, rest your head onto your hands again. And I didn't say this, I hope that you worked it out, that here too, instead of having your legs all the way together and squeezing the legs together, make a little bit more space for the sacrum by having your legs out more optimum distance, a little bit apart. And then let's repeat the pose. And reaching hands back. And in your own time, coming up. The thighs lift up and stretch back towards the knees. The head lifts up and chest. And it's all going up. And exhale down. And dropping your legs back this time. Resting your head onto your hands. Let's not move for a second. Give time for any release that needs to occur. A few deeper breaths. And then we're going to come into all fours kneeling. Support your hands underneath your shoulders. Lift up your head and your chest. And just there in neutral cat-cow position. Then bring your knees apart further. Swing your feet together. And very gradually stretch your hips back towards your heels. Keep your tailbone lifting as you come back into Adho Mukha Virasana, or child's pose with your arms forward. And in a moment we'll come up for a standing twist, but come out of child's pose through dog pose. Tuck your toes under, lift your hips up, straightening your legs, and then walk forward towards your hands towards your feet, and roll up. Nice and easy does it. Peel right up. Take up your block again. And step your feet out just hip width distance. Square off your feet. And then bring the block into your right hand and place it onto the floor at a reach. So reach out your right hand, place the block out in front of your right foot. Good. Come all the way up again. Like Uttanasana, fold forward from the tops of your thighs and then reach that right hand out to the block where you've placed it. So as much as possible, we want that opening and stretch all along the lateral body. So your block, you might be able to nudge out a little bit farther away from you. And then what to do with the left hand, reach the left hand across to the outside of your right leg. This is your calf muscle on your right leg. Reach your hand around and grab hold of the calf muscle there. Bend your both elbows and reach the crown of the head down first, and then look towards the right side underneath your right arm. Elbows bend. Keep the pressure strong through your feet. And then we're going to come out of this just looking straight down. Bend your knees over your ankles. Move the block across to the left side, but come on up first. And rotating Uttanasana again, take a slight forward bend. Reach the left hand onto the block. Have it out at a distance from you. Open up in that lovely fashion all along the left side of your rib cage. Then head down. Reach your right hand across to the outside of your left lower leg. Get a good handhold there. Bend both of your elbows and looking over to the left side. And take a few quiet breaths there. Good. And then unraveling and releasing, and bend your knees over your ankles and peel up nice and slowly to standing. Okay. We're going to move into the yoga relaxation. And as we haven't done an inversion in any meaningful way in this class, you might want to do legs up the wall, and that's fine, or legs onto a chair, and that's always a nice movement for your lower back. But otherwise, find your way into Shavasana, into the reclining position with whatever props you need for that. I'm going to have a folded blanket. I encourage you to use an eye covering. I won't do that because I definitely want to stay awake and alert here. But an eye covering just helps you get into the mood of Shavasana more easily and sometimes more efficiently. So whatever one of those relaxation poses that you take, in your Shavasana, then start with your legs bent and lift up your tail and move it away from the base of your spine, and then settle the hips so that they feel even where they lie on the floor, the back of the pelvis. And in whatever position you've chosen to be in, find your way to feel that you're poised in the balance of weight between the two sides of your body. If you started out in Shavasana with your legs bent, then either support the backs of the legs onto a bolster or straighten the legs out. And from now and for the next couple of minutes, just see how you can take time to make those gross adjustments of the body and ultimately leading to being still, motionless. And we've had a moderately energetic class. So now the time that you give yourself here is really to set your body-mind on an even keel. So it may be that there's a little residue from any of the poses that we've done. That might be in some part of your body, or it might have even been in some of the messages that you were sending yourself about balance or whatever. And Shavasana is very much the time for letting go of all of it. And step one in doing that is to let go of the weight of the body. And create a mood of yielding to gravity. In all parts of your body. Release any heaviness that you might experience through the legs, the feet, the arms, hips, torso, the back of your head. And it may be, you can't really look for it, but it may be the case that as you lie there, that the body begins to feel a little bit lighter, a little more weightless. And then shifting attention to the breath. And it's often the case that we want to change something about the breath when we first notice it, but it's just fine the way that it occurs. The breath is going to come and go, and the difference is that you go with it. You're there with it. See now if you can stay with the flow of your own breath for the next couple of minutes in silence. And in a moment I'll be releasing from Shavasana, but you could stay as long as you would like to. Maybe you're in legs up the wall or another pose. Stay as long as you like. Or if you are moving on, then bend your legs, fold your arms. Take a stage where you're just resting on your side, as though you had all the time in the world. And in that same leisurely fashion, coming up, if you're ready to take a seat together. And in the traditional manner of joining hands in front of the chest in prayer position, and taking time for a check-in, and in that way that you've been more introspectively for the last few minutes, feeling your own essential self, your kindness, your goodness, your ability to love. And then we take all of that from the practice into the world. Namaste.